Picture an ordinary day. You're sitting in your usual cafe, not too crowded. At the next table, a couple is seated. The man is well-dressed, confident in speech and gesture. The woman nods, smiles, yet her eyes drift elsewhere. Despite his efforts, it's clear he hasn't truly reached her. We live in a world where compliments like, "You're beautiful," or "You're so smart," roll off the tongue as habit, safe, predictable, and forgettable. But if you've ever wondered why some men linger in a woman's mind, not for looks or wealth, but for the way they see her as no one else does, then this message is for you. We'll explore 5 compliments that seem simple, but when spoken with calm intent and deep Stoic awareness, they can awaken a connection that endures and leave her remembering you long after the moment has passed. 1. I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do. We live in an age where compliments often serve more as social currency than genuine recognition. Phrases like, "You're so smart," or "You're really talented," appear everywhere, in texts, dates, even at work. But if you look closely, these words often lack depth. They're predictable, pre-programmed responses, the kind of compliment that earns a polite smile, but stirs nothing within. In contrast, a simple statement like, "I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do," carries an entirely different weight. It's not just praise for intelligence. It's a carefully chosen recognition, born from thoughtful observations and true listening. It doesn't say she's better than others. It says her perspective is unique. That's the vital distinction. Ordinary compliments focus on outcomes, like success or correct answers, while this one honors process, thought, inner structure, and the unreplicable shape of a mind. Because in truth, wisdom is not a competition. It's the depth of thought, the ability to connect seemingly unrelated elements, the capacity to notice what others overlook. When a woman uses reason to shape her emotions, to approach difficulty with calm and clarity, she embodies the kind of practical, unboastful wisdom the Stoics revered. The Stoic does not seek to prove his intelligence. He disciplines his mind to form sound judgment, unclouded by emotion. And when you recognize this in a woman, not in grades, titles, or job roles, but in how she makes sense of the world, you are no longer communicating on a surface level. You're reaching something far deeper. What makes the phrase, "I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do," powerful is that it contains both curiosity and respect. Curiosity because you're showing a desire to explore her mind further. Respect because you're not demanding she agree with you, but honoring the distinctness of her view. This is what makes a woman feel truly seen, not visually, but in terms of conscious recognition. Most men don't realize what many women long for isn't sweet talk. It's the experience of being understood in their complexity. When you take the time to observe how she interprets a situation, asks questions, breaks down a problem, and respond not with a generic line, but with a sincere acknowledgement of her distinct way of thinking, you are doing something rare, affirming unspoken intelligence. True wisdom is rarely loud. It shows itself in poise, especially when the world grows noisy. A woman with a distinct mind might not speak the most in a room, but she leaves the deepest impression because she approaches life differently. If you notice this and express it with sincerity, she will feel seen in a way that far surpasses hollow praise. This kind of compliment fosters agency and confidence. You are telling her Your viewpoint matters, even if it stands alone. That's powerful in a culture that still pressures women to be gentle, to conform, to stay agreeable. A man who values sharp thinking in a woman empowers her to hold her ground, to question what's unreasonable, and to do so without losing her composure. Most importantly, a compliment rooted in intellect doesn't flirt, it honors. And that becomes the foundation for any meaningful relationship. Attraction may begin with emotion, but it only matures through mutual respect for thought and character. And when a woman feels that respect, not from flashy gestures, but from the quiet gravity of your observation, a bond of real worth begins to form. In this modern world, fragmented by phone alerts, stress, and the rush of digital life, one of the rarest, most powerful acts is something deceptively simple: presence. True presence is not just physical proximity. It is a mindful stillness, where one is fully tuned to the moment, without judgment or distraction. In relationships, especially between man and woman, this presence is most vividly expressed through listening, not the kind where you wait your turn to speak or nod out of habit, but the kind where you pay deep attention to words, expressions, and even what remains unsaid. It's a rare skill, but one that separates the shallow from the profound. When a woman shares her perspective, whether in work, life, or a personal thought, what she seeks is not total agreement, but full listening. That can only happen when the other person is truly present, not planning a reply, not filtering through emotion, but simply listening to understand, not to win. When a man does this, he isn't just skilled in conversation. He possesses inner strength. Presence demands self-control, mastery over impulsiveness, judgment, and the ego's need to impress. It's a trait that fits well with Stoic values, where one remains still amid the current, focused on what's within control, letting go of what's not. A meaningful dialogue, where a woman feels truly heard, is the direct fruit of that kind of steady inner state. This kind of listening speaks not only through ears, but eyes, posture, and timely silence. When a man doesn't interrupt, doesn't rush to resolve, but holds a quiet space to fully hear, he creates a refuge where the woman can express freely, without fear of judgment. In that space, something rare happens. The speaker feels understood, not because of what she said, but because the listener was fully there to receive it. In an age where most conversations skim the surface, where replies come faster than empathy, the art of listening becomes a rare treasure. When a woman senses that you genuinely care about her words, especially the ones no one else seems to value, like a subtle idea, a vague emotion, or an insight about the seemingly mundane, you are not just hearing, you are honoring her awareness. Such an act doesn't require poetic praise. Your presence itself becomes a silent yet powerful tribute. It says, I value your mind enough to immerse in it, to grasp it, not dismiss it, because it comes from a woman. In a world where female intelligence still battles underestimation, your act of true listening becomes a potent form of recognition, far beyond any compliment. And presence, real presence, cannot be faked. Women sense it. They know when someone is listening to reply instead of listening to understand. So if your attention is genuine, without manipulation, without seeking advantage, the safety and understanding you bring is deeply felt. This becomes the ground for trust, and trust is the root of enduring connection. Beyond building stronger relationships, the art of listening brings another reward: true understanding of the person before you. This matters because if you don't grasp how a woman thinks, your compliments won't align. They'll ring false, or worse, feel manipulative. That's why presence is not just a social tool, it's mental discipline. It demands internal quiet, detachment from noise, and the humility to know every person is a world. Only in stillness can you enter that world with real respect. And when you reach that state, even the simplest words, like, "I've never met anyone who sees the world the way you do," carry an uncommon power, because they come from someone who truly sees, not someone trying to impress. 2. You showed real strength in facing that. When society speaks of strength, it often conjures images of decisiveness, physical resilience, or dominant action. Yet there exists another form of strength, quieter, more enduring, and far deeper, not born from outward force, but from the mastery of one's inner world. In many women, strength does not announce itself through loud speeches or bold decisions, but through emotional restraint in moments that could easily wound. The ability to remain composed when challenged, to stay calm when misunderstood, and to act with integrity in unjust circumstances. These are marks of a mind tempered through discipline. In such moments, a woman doesn't merely overcome her own turmoil. She becomes a stabilizing presence for others. This strength doesn't clamor for recognition, yet it leaves a clear impression on anyone perceptive enough to notice. In relationships, pressure points such as arguments, value conflicts, or work stress reveal emotional patterns. Many react impulsively, lashing out, withdrawing in silence, or overreacting to assert they've been hurt. But the person who can steer their emotions, who pauses, chooses their response, embodies true inner control. When a woman maintains clarity amidst emotional exposure, it is not apathy, but intentional choice. She may feel pain or disappointment, but instead of letting emotions drive her, she chooses to preserve the relationship or uphold her dignity. This reveals a deep command of the inner self, a trait that ancient philosophies, especially Stoicism, regard as the pinnacle of emotional wisdom and personal strength. Emotional control doesn't mean repression or denial. On the contrary, it requires honest recognition of emotion without allowing it to dictate behavior. For example, when confronted with unfair criticism, rather than snapping back or withdrawing, a woman with emotional discipline may ask thoughtful questions, recalibrate the tone, and stand her ground without raising her voice. This is more than social grace. It is the result of cultivated inner calm, where reason does not drown in emotional noise. In Stoic thought, this state is known as ataraxia, tranquility in the face of external chaos. When this is reflected in a woman's actions, it is not merely clever self-preservation, but a form of strength worthy of reverence. What matters most is that this kind of strength isn't easily visible. Outsiders may only see a normal woman, smiling, as she handles a difficult situation. But those who observe closely will see the silent battle beneath, between emotion and reason, instinct and conscious choice. When a man perceives that, not through flattery but through meaningful words like, "You showed real strength in facing that," the compliment becomes more than encouragement. It becomes acknowledgement. That inner strength, though unseen, is noticed, respected, and remembered. For the woman, this brings a unique feeling that her quiet effort isn't invisible, her composure isn't dismissed, and her inner power is as valid as outward achievements. In a modern world where expression often outshines depth, such a compliment serves as a quiet counterpoint. It doesn't glorify emotional suppression or praise Stoic suffering, but simply recognizes that some, especially women, choose a higher response, and that choice deserves to be named rightly. In many relationships and in modern life, we tend to judge each other by final outcomes. An action is right if it brings desired results. A decision is praised if it ends in success. Yet there is a deeper measure, often overlooked, but more enduring, and that is the strength of conduct throughout the process. When we speak of a woman's inner strength, the question isn't only what she accomplished, but how she carried herself when the outcome was still unknown, or when she stood in the middle of crisis. True composure isn't perfect behavior. It's steadiness of thought, self-restraint in action, and the choice to preserve personal integrity even when it would be easier not to. In conflict, a woman may not resolve everything instantly, but she doesn't blame, manipulate with emotion, or wound others just to prove a point. That choice, to preserve the relationship even while wounded, is courage in motion. Stoicism has always distinguished what lies within our control from what does not. The results of an action are often beyond us, shaped by circumstance, others, or chance. But how we meet the moment, that remains ours. In relationships, this means a woman's composure, fairness, and presence are just as worthy of respect as any outcome. So when a man says, "You showed real strength in facing that," what makes the statement profound is that he focuses not on what was resolved, but on the strength of character he witnessed. It shows he sees past appearances, doesn't demand perfection, and honors something within. That recognition tells her, even if you didn't win, even if the problem remains, your way of meeting it is deeply worthy of respect. In truth, many situations have no clear right answer. When a woman must choose between career and family, or whether to forgive or walk away from a harmful relationship, her strength isn't measured by the choice itself, but by how she reaches it. If she takes time to reflect, avoids letting pain cloud her judgment, and maintains respect, even amid conflict, then she has proven she can navigate uncertainty without losing herself. The person of integrity acts from principle, not impulse. She knows what aligns with her values and accepts the cost of upholding them. When a woman acts in this way, even if misunderstood or criticized, she reveals the strength of a sovereign soul. This is not loud, not attention-seeking, but always valuable to those who truly understand. Compliments that honor this strength are powerful because they touch a hidden part of character, the part rarely spoken of, not easily shared, and difficult to hold on to. Many women have learned to stay silent instead of argue, to choose kindness over revenge, to walk away without leaving scars. These are not easy things, and yet they are seldom acknowledged. That's why when someone notices, understands, and says so with sincerity, the words become more than praise. They become a healing form of recognition. True strength shows itself most clearly in moments when people are most likely to lose themselves, when hurt, when misunderstood, when cornered. If a woman can still act with kindness, it is not weakness. It is the clearest sign of strength, shaped through practice. And the truth is, This way of being does not always yield immediate rewards. It may even cost her, but over time, it builds something priceless: dignity. And dignity is not something to be traded for any result. 3. I see how you make the people around you more positive. In many modern evaluation systems, from academia and business to social life, there is a tendency to focus on tangible actions, measurable results, observable achievements, and outward skills are easy to recognize, reward, and compare. Yet amidst all the numbers and clear evidence lies a deeper form of influence, often unnamed: the silent impact on the emotional and mental state of those nearby. Some people carry a certain kind of energy. When it's present, the atmosphere softens, tension eases, optimism spreads, and connection flows more naturally. Interestingly, most of them aren't trying to make this happen. They don't seek the spotlight, don't speak excessively, don't impose or interfere. Simply by being, through their calm, positive attitude and the way they treat others, they create an emotional field that gently recalibrates the energy of the group. This is not accidental. It is the fruit of inner discipline. A woman who remains centered, who doesn't get pulled into drama, who responds rather than reacts, and quietly leans toward the good, is creating emotional safety for those around her. In a circle of friends, within a family, or even in a meeting room, her presence often becomes a quiet anchor. She doesn't need to display authority or intellect. Her composed stillness alone helps others breathe easier, feel more confident, and grow more hopeful. Such invisible influence is hard to measure. It won't show up on a KPI sheet, doesn't translate into revenue, and doesn't yield instant outcomes. In fact, society often overlooks or dismisses it simply because it isn't seen. Yet if you look closely, you'll notice that where such people are absent, tension rises, conflicts spark more easily, and negativity spreads faster. So while this type of influence isn't defined by visible actions, it plays a vital role in maintaining emotional balance within a group. In personal relationships, this becomes even more evident. When a woman can sustain a positive atmosphere between two people, not by avoiding problems, but by remaining composed, empathetic, and solution-oriented, she becomes an emotional anchor. This doesn't require eloquence or persuasive skills. It's enough that the other person feels unjudged, free to express themselves, and met with a steady current of warmth, and the relationship will grow in a healthier direction. Unfortunately, such subtle influence is rarely acknowledged in praise. People are quick to say, "You're so kind," "You work hard," or "You're really efficient," because these are easy to see and name. But almost no one pauses to say, "I see how you make the people around you more positive." This kind of praise reflects deep observation and affirms a kind of impact that often goes unnoticed, particularly in a society growing less patient and more emotionally volatile. Stoic philosophy always returns to what is within our control: attitude, response, and presence. When a woman practices this daily, without seeking attention or praise, the calm she brings becomes living proof of inner training. And when someone finally notices and speaks aloud what she herself may not have realized, the words touch something deep in the soul. Such a compliment is not merely observation. It is reverence for a rare quality. It transcends outcomes because it doesn't say, "Look what you did," but, "Oh, this is who you are." and this is the effect you have on the world. It is a compliment that awakens, helping her recognize that her value isn't limited to visible actions, but includes the way she makes the world gentler, simply by showing up rightly. In both personal and social relationships, most of the emotional value people bring operates quietly, often unspoken and unrecognized. This is especially true for women, who frequently and without being asked or acknowledged, hold the emotional tone of a group, diffuse conflict, or inspire others toward a more uplifting way of being. This doesn't come from a desire for recognition, but from how they show up. And precisely because it is so natural, it is often taken for granted. When a woman makes others feel at ease, helps them connect, or invites a lighter perspective, that is an emotional contribution. It doesn't appear in performance metrics, reports, or appraisals, yet without it, the spaces we live and work in become colder, harsher, and more disoriented. In truth, it is those who bring emotional safety who most effectively hold groups and families together. Still, we tend to reward what's measurable. Results, deadlines met, problems solved, emotional contributions, like listening at the right moment, understanding before someone finds the words, or being a calming presence in tense situations, are rarely mentioned. This creates a paradox. The more women fulfill the role of emotional harmonizer, the more it is assumed and forgotten. No one thinks to acknowledge it, because their presence has become normal. That's why a simple line like, "I see how you make the people around you more positive," can be both surprising and healing. It shows a woman that what she brings, even if intangible, is felt and valued. This matters deeply in a world that often dismisses emotion and mistakes gentleness for weakness. When such a compliment comes from genuine observation, it can change how a woman sees her own worth. Stoic philosophy does not call for coldness or indifference, quite the opposite. It teaches mastery of emotion in order to act from reason and kindness. When a woman controls her emotional reactions, refuses to spread negativity, and does not let personal pain spill into others, that is a high form of Stoic virtue. She may not name it as such, but her composed, kind, and optimistic presence is a visible expression of emotional intelligence and inner strength. Unlike compliments about looks or achievements, praise for emotional value requires depth of perception. Not everyone can see when a woman is a quiet source of strength for the group, because it doesn't come from a single act, but from the whole of how she lives, how she responds to adversity, how she handles tension, how she makes room for others to be fully themselves. Her presence fosters safety, not by protecting, but by not judging, not pressuring, not dragging others into conflict. Such emotional value often remains unseen, unpraised. But precisely because of that, when it is finally recognized, the words carry great power. They show that the man sees beyond outcomes and appearances, that he feels the emotional shift she brings, perhaps more clearly than she herself ever has. Moreover, this kind of acknowledgement helps reshape collective understanding. Emotion is not secondary. Positivity isn't excess enthusiasm. The ability to elevate the emotional state of others is a kind of intelligence, no less valuable than logic or strategy. When a compliment reflects that truth, it not only makes the woman feel seen and appreciated, it elevates the standing of emotional contribution in both personal and collective life. 4. The way you live makes me want to become a better man. In all relationships, especially between men and women, mutual influence is inevitable. Yet how that influence occurs, where it comes from, and what it produces differs greatly. Some relationships make one feel pressure to change, just to be good enough, leading to strain, resistance, and the erosion of self. But in others, change unfolds naturally, without intervention or demand, simply as the result of an inspiring presence. This is when a woman causes a man to want to become a better version of himself, not because he's asked to, but because he sees the need within himself to grow. The compliment, "The way you live makes me want to become a better man," isn't just pleasant to hear. It is a rare kind of acknowledgement. She hasn't tried to change anyone, yet profoundly impacts a man's inner life. Her influence doesn't come through advice, judgment, or expectation. It comes from how she lives, how she meets hardship, holds fast to her principles, treats others with dignity, and overcomes emotion without losing her kindness. These quiet, unforced acts command a respect that inspires imitation. This internal influence embodies one of Stoicism's central tenets. We become better not from fear or to please others, but because our soul is stirred by an example of virtue. When a woman lives with integrity, acts with consistency, and preserves her character in all conditions, she not only guards her own self, she also silently awakens the conscience of others. This is not teaching. It is truth in motion. In a world where calls to grow up, control your emotions, or pay more attention often spring from criticism, hearing, "The way you live makes me want to become better," offers something entirely different. It doesn't diminish the one who hears it. It elevates him. The transformation it inspires does not come from guilt or pressure, but from the realization, "I can be more, and I want to be, because of this person's presence in my life." Such influence doesn't need words. Sometimes, merely witnessing how a woman stays composed in conflict, chooses compassion over retaliation, or lives true to her values without seeking recognition is enough to awaken change. Not imitation, but quiet internal correction, rooted, deep, and lasting. Because it is not controlling, this influence does not provoke resistance. Instead, it invites a genuine desire to mature, improve, and return to one's better self. Inner influence also affirms that the woman has no need to change others to prove her worth. She lived by her principles, not to be admired, not to compel, but simply because that is her chosen path. In doing so, she becomes a clearer example than any lesson could provide. In Stoic thought, this is what it means to live by right reason. Detached from outcome, uninterested in control, focused solely on mastering oneself. And such mastery, once attained, inevitably radiates outward. The phrase, "the way you live makes me want to become a better man," is not just admiration. It is recognition of a quiet power, influence by way of example, not persuasion. It is one of the highest forms of impact, not born of dominance or eloquence, but of integrity and unwavering presence. In a relationship where both partners can influence one another through presence and principled living, the connection grows not just in affection, but as a mutual ground for personal development. No pressure, no desire to mold each other, just a quiet, ongoing reflection that uplifts both souls. This is the foundation of a lasting bond, where inner influence becomes the most potent form of attachment. In many relationships, especially romantic ones, Self-change is often misunderstood as sacrifice, a quest for approval, or a sign of inadequacy. But there is another kind of transformation, one that doesn't stem from criticism or the desire to please, but from the simple presence of someone who stirs something good within us. It is a change born from inspiration, from a desire to evolve, not from a wound, but from awakening. The compliment "the way you live makes me want to become a better man" expresses this distinction. It does not imply inferiority or correction. It is a quiet testament to the influence of one person's presence, behavior, mind, and character on another's journey of self-realization. With no pressure, no command, and complete willingness. True, lasting change always comes from within. When someone encounters a life that is admirable, not just logically, but through heartfelt resonance, the desire to grow arises naturally. It's not a desperate reach for love, but the quiet movement of a soul stirred from slumber. When a man sees a woman live by principle, act with grace, and hold her dignity through trial, he may be compelled to look inward, to reevaluate his habits, choices, and stance toward life. In such a moment, she is not a teacher, nor does she set moral standards for him to meet. She simply lives her truth, steadfast in value and word. Crucially, she expects nothing, imposes nothing, and never uses love as leverage. That consistency, combined with the freedom she allows, creates an emotional environment where authentic growth takes root. Change born from inspiration is enduring because it is free of guilt or fear. The man does not feel judged or forced to be someone in order to remain in the relationship. Instead, he feels proud to be on a path of betterment, and this journey becomes a facet of love itself, not its condition. Stoic philosophy has long emphasized that we cannot control others, but we can become examples through our way of life. In the union of two individuals, when both live with reason, principle, and emotional steadiness, influence becomes not force, but a ripple. Without trying to change the other, each can still help the other grow by simply being their truest, most centered self. In this light, the compliment "the way you live makes me want to become a better man" reveals something profound. Change is no longer a burden in love. It becomes a natural part of deep connection. When inspiration arises from truth, not fear, then every step of personal growth is voluntary, vibrant, and free. It is a kind of maturing that requires no coercion, no correction, only admiration and gratitude. Moreover, it transforms the very nature of the relationship. No longer a negotiation, where one must improve to earn the other's approval. The bond becomes a shared journey. Each touches the other's spirit, yet neither controls. Each voluntarily turns inward, adjusts, refines, not out of shame, but because they've been awakened by the other to something higher within themselves. When change is inspired, not imposed, it opens the door to deep understanding and enduring unity. In such a relationship, no one is fixing the other. Both are learning and evolving. And that compliment, spoken at the right moment, can mark a turning point, helping the woman see that her honest, consistent way of living is not only valuable for herself, but has quietly illuminated someone else's path toward becoming better. 5. Every time you walk in, the room seems to brighten. In daily life, people are often measured by what they do: achievements earned, words spoken, visible actions taken. This creates a system that prioritizes efficiency, productivity, and measurable outcomes. Yet alongside what can be seen and quantified, there exists another kind of influence, subtle, profound, and quietly powerful. The kind of energy a person brings into a shared space simply by being present. Some individuals don't need to speak loudly or do anything grand. Their mere presence shifts the atmosphere. Tension softens, the air feels lighter, and the spirits of others rise, quietly but unmistakably. This presence isn't theatrical or attention-seeking. It creates no noise, demands no spotlight. It's a steady emotional grounding that makes people feel safe simply by being near. This effect can be explained by emotional psychology. A person's internal state affects others through nonverbal cues, eye contact, breathing rhythm, facial expressions, hand gestures, and most importantly, consistent conduct. In group dynamics, emotional states are contagious, and someone who is composed and anchored inside transmits that sense of stability outward. This isn't a performance. It's the result of a refined character. Someone who knows how to regulate reactions, balance emotion, and remain aware. A woman who carries such energy is often unaware of its reach. She's not trying to be the center, nor attempting to calm others down. Yet simply through her way of being, she creates a more grounded emotional space. This is most visible in tense environments, a difficult meeting, a chaotic event, a room lacking connection. When she enters, something shifts, not due to words or actions, but because her presence alone becomes a stabilizing force. In Stoic philosophy, inner state is foundational to facing the world with calm and clarity. True composure doesn't need to be spoken. It radiates. The Stoic doesn't seek to change others with words, but allows their own character to serve as quiet influence. And when that character is deeply cultivated, it begins to transform the world around it without effort. So when a man says, "Every time you walk in, the room seems to brighten," it is not shallow flattery or fleeting sentiment. It's a profound recognition that her value isn't found in showy action, but in the quality of her presence. Something difficult to define, but deeply felt. It acknowledges that her being uplifts the collective spirit and nourishes an atmosphere many crave, but cannot create. Sadly, this kind of presence is often undervalued in modern society, where results and performance dominate praise. People are commended for solving problems, speaking well, or producing outcomes. Rarely is someone recognized simply for making others feel lighter by showing up. But such presence is no accident. It is the mark of a mind that has been trained. A woman who has learned to guard her peace regardless of chaos. When a compliment is offered, at the right time, in the right way, it does more than make her feel seen. It helps her realize the quiet value she brings into the world. This value doesn't require grand gestures or dramatic displays. It only needs presence that is calm, authentic, and aware. Recognizing and naming someone's energy field is itself a practice in awareness and gratitude. In the rush of modern life, it's easy to miss the invisible essentials. When a man can see beyond behavior and sense the effect a woman has on her environment, not through words, but through feeling, it shows he is living with higher awareness, a rare attentiveness. And in that awareness, he discovers something sacred, a presence that heals. In today's world, beauty is often reduced to what the eye can catch. Facial symmetry, physique, style, a charming smile. These are the easy targets of flattery, quick, common, and widely accepted. But there is another kind of beauty, one not captured in photos or described in sound bites. And yet, when encountered, it leaves a lasting imprint. It shifts perspectives and changes how others experience the world. This is spiritual beauty. Spiritual beauty doesn't come from polish or pretense. It emerges from how a person lives, thinks, feels, and interacts with the world. A woman with this kind of beauty may not turn heads upon entering a room, but after a conversation or through her quiet presence, she leaves something behind that lingers. This beauty doesn't overwhelm. It draws people in. It makes them want to stay, to understand more, and above all, to become better versions of themselves in her presence. The compliment every time you walk in, the room seems to brighten, is more than praise for charm. It is recognition by someone who has seen past appearances into a woman's deeper essence. It says, your presence not only draws attention, it improves the world around you. It honors a beauty not of the eyes, but of perception. Spiritual beauty is forged over time, through experience, through wounds that have healed, and through the discipline of inner refinement. Such a woman may not always be cheerful, but she is steady. She experiences emotion, but it doesn't control her. She lives by principle, speaks when needed, and knows when silence serves best. She does not seek superiority, nor does she lose herself. This beauty is earned, not borrowed, not copied. Unlike physical beauty, which fades, spiritual beauty endures, often growing with maturity. It isn't shaped by age or trends, but by evolving awareness and interior depth. So when a man recognizes and articulates it, in a way as simple as saying she makes the space brighter, it reveals rare insight and genuine respect. A compliment that names spiritual beauty not only affirms her, but reminds her of a truth she may have forgotten. In a world obsessed with appearances, many women are caught in striving to be beautiful enough by external standards, neglecting the deeper worth that cannot be photographed or captioned. A well-timed compliment can restore that recognition, that her presence, even in silence, carries weight. Moreover, acknowledging spiritual beauty broadens the cultural definition of what it means to be attractive. When women are praised not just for clothes or smiles, but for how they make others feel, it redefines the standard. It introduces a new ideal, one of depth, inner power, and quiet positivity. This benefits not just the individual woman, but enriches human relationships, shifting connection from surface to soul. From a Stoic perspective, recognizing spiritual beauty is a mark of mature emotional intelligence. Instead of judging what can fade, the Stoic sees what endures, what is within one's control, what remains unshaken by circumstance. A woman with spiritual beauty is one who has mastered her inner life, remains unruled by emotion or events, and in that mastery, carries light into every room she enters. So when someone tells her, every time you walk in, the room seems to brighten, it's more than admiration. It's acknowledgement that she lives a life of quiet influence, not by trying to stand out, but by carrying a value the world desperately needs: beauty without display, presence without performance, and a way of being that uplifts the spirit without saying a word. Looking back at the deeper compliments we've just explored, I realize their true power doesn't lie in eloquent phrasing, but in the inner state of the person who speaks them. On the path of living in accordance with Stoic principles, I've gradually learned that refined observation, sincere respect, and emotional self-mastery are not merely ideals. They are daily disciplines to be practiced. We don't need to be orators to move someone deeply. All it takes is to truly listen, to be mindfully present, and to step outside the confines of ego. Then we begin to see what others often overlook: how she confronts hardship, the energy she carries, and the quiet yet lasting impact she leaves in others' hearts. When a compliment is born from such understanding, it becomes a gift of the Spirit, not just for the one who receives it, but for ourselves as well. And I've tested this. Instead of complimenting out of habit, I chose to pause, observe, feel, and speak only what genuinely touched me. The result was a deeper connection, no longer fleeting attraction, but resonance at the level of values. That is what Stoicism brings to relationships. Not attachment, not control, but mutual influence through how each person chooses to live. If you found this video meaningful and wish to continue your journey of self-development through deeper reflections on psychology and Stoicism, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss future content. And remember, being alive is already a gift, but how we show up in the world is what makes us unforgettable. I'll see you in the next video.